we are back with chapter 13 of the Transcendent series by Lisa Beeson. We just left off chapter 12, where she finished telling her life story to Adam as they're driving in the truck. And now we're up to the present time. Adam let out a long puff of air when Ari stopped talking. It had taken her more than 2 hours to tell Adam the whole story. They had driven up I-30, around Little Rock, and an hour up I-40 before she had finished. She didn't talk like any kid he'd ever met before. Her thought processes and reasoning skills were more like that of a 30-year-old, rather than a 12-year-old. She was looking over at him nervously, watching his reaction to all that she had told him. He rubbed at the bristles growing on his jaw. "That's quite a story, kid." He looked straight ahead at the road in front of him as the sun dipped behind the tree line beside the highway. "It's all true. I can prove it. Can I use your phone?" Ari held out her hand impatiently, waiting for Adam to give her the okay to take it from the mount on his dash. He looked down at her outstretched hand and told her to hold on a moment. Pulling off at the next exit, he found a gas station and then eased up to the pump. After he turned off the engine, he took out his phone and handed it over to her. She looked up her own obituary on the Savannah Tribune website and then handed the phone back to Adam, making sure he saw the picture next to her old name. Adam scanned over the obituary and looked closely at the picture. He looked over at Ari, who was staring at him intensely, and then back at the picture. There was no denying it. The faces were a perfect match. Her eyes were so distinct that there was no mistaking them. Ari rummaged through her bag until she pulled out the manila envelope holding her fake passport. She took it out and handed it over to him. He turned on the overhead light in the truck and examined the passport thoroughly. Even to him, it looked legit. Whoever made this knew what they were doing. He handed it back to her, then raked his hand through his hair. "All that proves is that you have some really connected friends that helped you fake your death. But all that stuff about oracles, demigods, and evil spirit people, it's pretty hard to believe, you have to admit." How could she prove to him the existence of things he couldn't see? She could go into hyperspeed, but she didn't want to do that in front of a gas station full of people, and it took too much energy. She racked her brain trying to think of some way to prove that everything she said was true. Then she had it. She pulled out the necklace from under her shirt, the blue jewel shimmering under the overhead light. She then took out the black velvet pouch that Cass had given her, holding the ring inside. Ari handed the pouch over to Adam, and then asked him to take out the ring. Adam took the pouch and removed the ring, holding it up to the light. She made sure he had plenty of time to examine it. She took off the chain from around her neck and laid the blue jewel on her upturned hand. Then, holding out her left hand, she waited for him to place the ring on her palm. As soon as the ring touched Ari's hand, the jewels illuminated with an inner glow, like she was a conductor of sorts. Adam blinked in surprise, then took both jewels in his hands, and they immediately stopped glowing upon his touch. He examined both of them, scrutinizing every facet, looking for some sort of lighting source. Then he gave them back to her, causing them to glow once more. "I don't know how you're doing that, but it still doesn't prove that other stuff." He shook his head, baffled by what he'd just seen. "But it doesn't matter. You're still going to come with me so we can find out who these suits are, and then we'll figure it out from there." Ari couldn't believe that he still thought she was lying. What else could she do? She didn't tell him her whole life story for nothing. Then it hit her. Maybe she could do what Cass did and try to read his thoughts. If she could then tell him what he was thinking, then he'd have to believe her. When she thought about it, maybe that was what she was unconsciously trying to do to Mr. Ramsey back at the hospital, when she had put her hand on his face. What if she could have been able to do this the whole time? Ari put the necklace back on and put the ring away. Then, throwing caution to the wind, she turned to Adam, touched his left temple, and looked intently into his eyes, using her inner light to connect to the ethos like Ruby did. Suddenly, she flashed into a scene from Adam's mind. It was strange to see how he saw. Everything was so flat, with no auras and less colors. It was night. He was dressed in his military fatigues and holding an assault rifle. He was looking at a little girl, who couldn't be more than 8 years old, standing in the middle of the road, caught in the middle of a firefight. Adam ran into the road, scooped up the screaming child, and dashed into the building on the other side of the road. Kneeling down and holding a small girl in his arms, he saw with a stab of dread and remorse that he'd been too late. The child had been shot before he had reached her, and was now bleeding profusely from a chest wound. She was looking up at the ceiling, whispering something in Farsi. Adam tried to staunch the wound while telling her to hold on, but her beautiful, dark eyes glazed over, and her body went limp. Adam cried out in anguish, trying to call her back. His emotions of extreme sorrow and guilt flooded Ari's mind. He felt like he had failed the girl by not protecting her. If only it had been a second or two faster. The pain was intense and all-consuming. Ari gasped when Adam swatted her hand away from his face and broke the connection. Everything that she had seen had only taken a second or so in real time. "What the hell are you doing? Why did you touch my face like that?" Adam asked, looking at her like she was crazy. Ari felt horrible. What she had done was wrong. What she saw wasn't given to her. She had taken it. She had witnessed something so intimate and painful that she knew it was something he would never have wanted her to see. It was such an invasion of privacy that she vowed she'd never do something like that again. There was just something in your hair." She looked away and started to open the door, knowing he'd be able to tell that she was lying. "I'm going to go inside to use the restroom and pick up some snacks. I'll be right back." Wait, who's saying that? I think it's her. I'm not sure who went inside. Yeah, she looked away and started to open the door, knowing he'd be able to tell she was lying. "I'm going to go inside and use the restroom and pick up some snacks. I'll be right back." Adam got out and said he'd meet her in there when he was done pumping the gas. After filling up the truck and stocking up on provisions, they headed back onto the highway. Ari was still trying to shake off the residual sadness from Adam's memory. She couldn't imagine having to live with that kind of pain all the time. To take her mind off of his pain and her own guilt, she eagerly stuffed her face with the candy bars she'd gotten at the gas station. As the chocolate endorphins started to soothe her nerves, she felt able to ask, "So, where are we headed to, anyway?" Adam took a sip of his energy drink. "We're going to my sister's place. We can hole up there for a while until we figure out what to do next." Ari didn't like how he was throwing around all this "we" stuff. She had to get up to Toronto to meet with that Gordon Reinhold guy. And she didn't feel like carting Adam along with her. She'd put him in enough danger telling him everything, even though he still didn't believe her. And now he thought she was a weirdo for touching his face. "Adam, why are you helping me?" He cleared his throat and then took another sip of his drink. "I don't know. Maybe it's just the cop instinct in me that feels the need to protect and serve." Ari read his intentions as he answered and felt the true reason why he was helping her. Redemption. He took another sip. "And it just feels like the right thing to do," he admitted. Weird. That's what Mandy had said before. "Is your sister going to mind us crashing at her place?" "Well, it's kind of my place too, so it shouldn't be a problem." He saw Ari's confusion, and then explained that it used to be their parents' house. When their parents died, they left the house and property to both of them, thinking that they could sell it and split the money. But his sister loved the house and the privacy the remote property afforded her, so they kept it. She lived there full-time, and he used it as his home of residence while he was still in the Army. Now he was just staying out there until he can find a new job. "So you don't want to be a cop anymore? Not even a civilian one?" Ari asked. A haunted look crossed his face, then quickly disappeared. "No, I'm done with that," he answered flatly. By the tone of his voice, Ari could tell he didn't want to talk about it. so she decided to drop that conversational thread. Tell me about your sister. What's she like? She's cool. Hey, I just told you my whole life story. The least you can do is tell me about the woman whose house I'm going to be staying at. She tried to do a lame impression of him to lighten the mood. Not just, she's cool. Fine, he said with a smirk. She's really cool. Ari playfully punched his shoulder. Adam laughed and put his hands up in mock surrender. Her name is Jamie, and she's 3 years younger than me. She became mostly deaf when she was 7 years old due to contracting viral meningitis. But she was able to get cochlear implants when she was 14, so she can hear and speak normally. Jamie's friendly, but she enjoys her privacy, which is why she likes living on the family's old horse farm. That, and there's enough space for all her sculptures. She's an artist. She likes to take things and weld them together and to make something completely different. In fact, that's what I was doing down in Texas. I was picking up some things she found on Craigslist. That's better, she said with a satisfied smirk. Did you tell her I was coming? Ari had seen him texting someone back at the gas station. She knows that I picked up a buddy on the way, he evaded. Don't you think she might freak out when your buddy turns out to be a 12-year-old girl? He shrugged his shoulders. She might, but she'll get over it. Ari wasn't so sure. They turned off the highway onto a gravel road. Ari saw a large mailbox with the name Lennox painted on the side. The road cut through a large swatch of woods that lit up the night with the radiant light from the plants and animals. Having special sight had its perks, night vision being one of them. She could see the nocturnal animals scurrying about. She saw a couple deer running through the woods towards the road ahead of them. The truck was going to hit them if Adam didn't slow down. Apparently, he couldn't see them coming, so Ari yelled, "Stop!" Adam hit the brakes hard, making the tires skid a little on the gravel. "What? What's wrong?" he yelled. Then 3 deer ran across the road through the beams of his headlight. How the hell did you see them coming? Ari pulled a trick out of Ruby's playbook, pointing to her eyes to remind him that she had special eyesight. Adam shook his head and rubbed his hand over his face. God, you almost gave me a heart attack, kid. Just try to give me more of a heads up next time, he said warily. Sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see them until we were that close. He let out a deep breath and raked his hand through his hair. They began down the road again. Up ahead, she saw what looked like a red laser going across the road at about shin level. What's that red line going across the road up there? Adam looked over at her sharply. You could see that too? She nodded, and he told her that it was a sensor to let the people in the house know when someone was coming down the road. Soon after the sensor, they came up to a gate and a fence with a large sign hanging over it like the ranches in the old Western movies. It had the words Paradise Glades written in big black letters, with silhouettes of running horses on either side. Well, that bodes well. Can't get much better than paradise. After they passed through the gate, the trees opened up to a great span of grass that surrounded a large white farmhouse. It looked like it had to be at least 100 years old, but it seemed to be well maintained. There was a barn off to the right of the house and some old stables past that, and then acres of fenced-in grassland surrounded by more woods. Adam explained that the pens used to be for the horses, but they had to sell them all to afford the renovations to the house. He drove the truck toward the barn and backed up to the large doors. He said that he'd unload the stuff from the truck bed in the morning, so Ari grabbed her stuff and followed him towards the house. The lights were on downstairs, and Ari could see someone moving around behind the curtains. Instead of going towards the front door, Adam led her around back. She followed him onto the back porch to a door that led straight into the kitchen. Even with the renovations, the charm of the old farmhouse was still prevalent. All the appliances were new, but they didn't look out of place. Pardon me. There was a comfy breakfast nook in the corner, and a large butcher board island in the middle of the kitchen, with a 6-burner gas range on top. Adam went straight for the refrigerator and got a beer. He asked if Ari wanted something to drink, and she nodded. As he was handing her an old-fashioned root beer bottle, Jamie walked into the kitchen. Her eyes widened when she saw Ari, and then she turned to Adam and said with her eyes, "What in the world are you thinking?" "Adam Ethan Lennox," she said slowly, shaking her head like he had gone insane. "She needed a place to stay," he said with a shrug. "Jamie, Ari. Ari, Jamie." He motioned to each, giving a quick introduction. "Hello," Ari said with a tight smile and self-conscious wave. "Hi," Jamie said with a quick, polite smile before immediately glaring back at Adam. She had the same color eyes as him, but her long, wavy hair was a natural honey blonde instead of Adam's dark brown. There was a definite family resemblance, which made Ari wonder what it would be like to look so much like someone else. Jamie looked like she was about to let Adam have it, but after glancing over at Ari, she thought better of it and started conversing in angry sign language at him. He put his beer down on the island and started signing back. Ari figured they were talking about her, but she didn't know exactly about what, and decided that she needed to learn sign language in the near future. About 5 minutes later, and 2/3 of the way through Ari's root beer, Jamie threw up her hands in frustration and said, "Fine!" Then, turning on her heels, she walked out of the kitchen. Adam took a sip of his beer and then made a cheers motion. "You're good to go, kid. She's going upstairs to set up the guest room for you." Judging by Jamie's body language, Ari didn't think that she was too happy about the situation. "I don't feel comfortable staying if she doesn't want me here." He shook his head. "You're fine. It just takes her a while to get used to new people. She's got a big heart. You two will be best friends by tomorrow." Not fully believing him, Ari let out an involuntary yawn. She had to admit that it would be nice to sleep in a real bed and not in a cramped bus seat. Adam told her that she could go upstairs and get cleaned up while Jamie set things up for her. "You can borrow some of Jamie's pajamas for tonight," he assured her. Ari was so tired that she didn't notice much on their way through the house to the staircase, but she did see the upright piano in the parlor. "Oh, you have a piano!" Adam looked over his shoulder as he led her upstairs. "That's my mom's old piano. It's probably out of tune after all these years." "Cool. I love out-of-tune pianos. They remind me of old-timey saloons." He chuckled as he showed her where the guest bathroom was. Ari took a much-needed, long, hot shower. A couple days of bus hopping will make a person ripe. When she was done, she dried off and put on the pajamas that Jamie had left for her. The shirt was big and the pants were too long, but they would do. She tied the drawstrings tight and made her way down the hall to the guest room. Jamie poked her head out of her room. "Good night, Ari. See you in the morning." "Good night, Jamie. Thanks for everything. I really appreciate it." She nodded and went back into her room. The guest room was clean and comfortable. There was a queen-sized bed covered with a patchwork quilt, a large window that looked out over the back fields and a pond, a chest of drawers, and a vanity in the corner. Ari turned off the lights and hopped into bed. After not having one for a while, it felt like the most comfortable bed ever. As she lay there, she couldn't believe how quiet it was. She'd never been this far out in the country before. She couldn't even hear any cars driving by on the highway. As she listened to the lullaby of the night insects, everything that had happened to her came crashing down like an emotional tsunami. She couldn't hold it back anymore. All the pain and sorrow of losing everything that she knew and loved came rushing forward and overwhelmed her. She rolled over and cried into the lavender-scented pillow, not wanting to disturb Adam and Jamie. She cried for the childhood she lost. She cried for the friends she'd never see again. But all she wanted more than anything was to be held and comforted by her parents one more time. Her heart broke for her family's pain. She cried until she felt empty, and a dull pain throbbed where her heart rested in her chest. Her last thought before falling into the oblivion of sleep was of poor Hector. He was probably the first one to realize that she was missing. She imagined him pulling up to the front of the school and seeing that she wasn't there waiting for him. And then sleep came to her like the dropping of a stage curtain, swift and absolute. And that was the end of chapter 13. We are making it through. What? Ooh. Man, there is so much. We're about midway in the book. There is so much yet to happen. Well, this will be the end of chapter 13, video 13. Hope to see you on chapter 14. Peace.